Good morning and welcome to our second virtual public consultation event for the proposed development at Helensburgh Golf Club. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for attending today. This event is an important part of the pre-application process, where we will present our proposals for the development at Helensburgh Golf Club, outline how we have taken into account the feedback from the last event, and take any comments you may have. We want to make sure that this development meets local needs and responds to comments raised during the pre-application process. Your views are therefore very important to us, and we welcome feedback on our finalised plans. This is a virtual event which will take the form of a webinar type presentation. In normal times, we would hold an exhibition in a community hall and allow you to view our proposals and speak to members of the project team directly. However, as a result of ongoing COVID restrictions, it is not possible, and we are carrying out our consultation online in accordance with government guidance. I am, however, very pleased to say that we have an expert team to present our plans and to answer any questions that you may have. By way of introductions, my name is Andrew Munnis. I am a planning partner with Montague Evans, appointed by Helensburgh Golf Club and Taylor Wimpey to lead the planning application process, including the public consultation, with the aim of obtaining planning permission for the proposed development. I am joined on this event by John Laverty from Helensburgh Golf Club, Graham Oswald from Taylor Wimpey, Richard Stoddard, Golf Course Advisor with STRI, David Urquhart, Clubhouse Architect with Wellwood Leslie Architects, and Ewan MacDonald from Dunbritton Housing Association. Before we start our presentation, I would like to cover off some housekeeping matters. Firstly, you can see and hear us, but we cannot see or hear you. This function has been restricted to protect your confidentiality. We are also recording this event, and it will be made available on our website for local residents who cannot attend today. Secondly, if you have any questions or comments about the proposals, then please enter these into the chat function at the bottom of the screen, and we will respond to these at the end of our presentation. These questions will be anonymous. During the presentation, we will also ask a few basic yes/no questions to understand if there is support for the various component parts of the proposals. These will appear as polls, and we would appreciate your responses to these when they appear. All you have to do is click and submit your answer when the questions appear on the screen. We have more details about our proposals on our websites, where you can also complete a feedback form. The website details appear at the bottom left of this screen. You can also email us your comments or questions directly at hgcdevelopment@montague-evans.co.uk. Finally, we plan to lodge our planning application next month, at which point you will have a further opportunity to comment directly on the proposals to Argyll and Bute Council. Site location. Most of you will already be familiar with the development site, but for the avoidance of doubt, the site location plan shows the area in question. The majority of the site is currently occupied by Helensburgh Golf Club, to the north of Macri Drive, Kent Drive, and accessed off East Abercrombie Street. The proposed residential development is currently allocated for housing within the Argyll and Bute Local Development Plan. We know that the development of this site will not be straightforward, but both Helensburgh Golf Club and Taylor Wimpey are excited about the fantastic opportunities which it presents to deliver first-class golfing facilities at the heart of the community and much needed affordable and family housing to meet local needs. Site context. The next slide, please, Gregor. We have undertaken an analysis of the site context and identified several key constraints and opportunities which it presents. The most obvious issue relevant to the development of the site is topography, indicated by the red arrows on this plan. Development platforms will be created to allow for the residential component. The topography equally creates the opportunity to take advantage of the amazing views the site offers over the Clyde estuary. The site has a number of known ecological issues which we have carefully considered in developing our proposals. These will be set out in detail within an accompanying environmental statement supporting the planning application submission. The site also includes existing trees, some of which will be lost to the proposed development. However, a tree survey has been carried out and we will ensure that any loss is mitigated through additional tree planting and the creation of new tree belts. We are aware that there are significant areas of peat on parts of the site, with the majority of this on the golf course extension area to the north. The golf course holes have therefore been designed to minimise any intrusion into areas of deep peat and to ensure that there will be no drying effect of the peat. A key issue for the development is to ensure that surface water runoff is retained within the site and that there is no impact on existing neighbours. A detailed flood risk and drainage assessment will also form part of the planning application submission. Similarly, a transport assessment has also been undertaken, which concludes that the proposed development can be accommodated within the capacity of junctions on the existing road network. This will also be submitted to the planning application or with the planning application for consideration by Argyll and Bute Council. Access to the development will be via East Abercrombie Street. Taking into account the various site constraints and opportunities, we have developed our master plan proposals, which will form the basis of our planning application submission to Argyll and Bute Council in August. Our master plan includes a total of 307 residential units with on-site affordable housing, together with access, landscaping and play space. Demolition of the existing golf clubhouse, the erection of a new golf clubhouse and associated car parking, a refreshed 18-hole golf course, a new 6-hole par 3 course, and connecting routes into and through the site, including via Old Luss Road. I will now hand over to John Laverty to explain the continued involvement of Helensburgh Golf Club in this project. John.
Thank you, Andrew. Good morning. Helensburgh Golf Club has been part of the town's social and sporting life for some 130 years. And during this time, the course has changed several times to match the needs that pertain to particular periods. We are currently at a stage where our clubhouse is beyond economic repair and our course and facilities require upgrading to meet the best of modern standards that would allow us to develop, grow and secure the long-term future of golf in Helensburgh and for the community in general. The project has been under consideration for some time. We firstly identified Taylor Wimpey as our preferred developer to partner us in taking our ambitions forward. We then selected STRI, one of Europe's leading golf and sporting specialists, to design what we believe will be first-class facilities within a remodeled course, including a par 3 course and upgraded practice and teaching areas. We appointed Wellwood Leslie as our clubhouse architects, given their track record and broad experience in golf clubhouse design. We believe that what this team of developer and specialists are bringing forward into this planning submission and hopefully approval will meet all of the club's objectives and provide the community with the best of class and a modern facility well into the future.
Thank you, John. Richard Stoddard of STRI will now explain the approach taken to the design of the reconfigured golf course. Richard.
Thanks, Andrew. Good morning to you all. I'm just going to start by giving a brief introduction to STRI, because I think it's important to understand how STRI has gone about the development of the golf course layout here at Helensburgh. So STRI is a specialist sports surface and environmental design consultancy working specifically in the sports sector. We've been established for more than 90 years and have a long-standing reputation in the golf industry. We've worked with the R&A, golf's governing body, for many years, providing management advice at all open venues. And our team of golf course architects, agronomists, and golf-specific ecologists provide consultancy advice to more than 600 UK golf facilities each year. It's frequently the case that the most striking and successful golf courses in the world are situated in or adjacent to sensitive landscapes. It is the quality of the environment in which the golf holes sit which adds an extra dimension of enjoyment to the game, in addition to the challenge offered by the strategic alignment of the golf holes. For more than 30 years, STRI has operated a bespoke golf ecology service dedicated to working with golf course and nature conservation bodies to demonstrate that not only is the sport of golf not environmentally damaging, but that it can in fact be a tool which can be used to enhance, restore, and maintain valuable habitat. Over the years, we've developed strong relationships with bodies such as Nature Scot, Natural England, and Natural Resource Wales, acting as an advisor between themselves and golf clubs located in sensitive areas, developing maintenance strategies to be delivered by golf clubs which serve to maintain and enhance the landscape within which they sit. Without management, habitats continually evolve and eventually degrade, and it's true that a large swathe of high-value habitat in Scotland are currently naturally degrading over time. Golf and the maintenance capabilities that come as part of a golf course setup can help combat this issue. STRI has successfully worked on restoring habitats in several areas across Scotland via the creation of new golf facilities, extensions or revisions to existing facilities, as we have here at Helensburgh, or by simply agreeing maintenance strategies on current golf courses that improve biodiversity and prevent habitat degradation. Now, that was a lengthy introduction, but one I feel is necessary to provide an insight into how STRI goes about delivering a project of this nature. Moving on to the Helensburgh project specifically, there were two critical factors we had to consider when creating this redesign, and I'll go into some detail on each of these in turn. Firstly, the redesigned golf course needed to add something in terms of playability and experience for the golfer over and above what the existing course provided. The project, of course, would fall over immediately if the club does not achieve an enhanced offering from this project. So what we have designed is a series of new holes to the north of the current golf course, plus revisions to the remaining existing holes. We've also included a 6-hole par 3 course and improved practice facilities. The proposed routing offers a slightly longer golf course of a little over 6,000 yards, up from the current 5,942 yards, retaining a par score of 69. Although longer, thereby creating an additional challenge to the accomplished golfer, there will be more teeing positions provided to accommodate all standards of play. The course has 2 loops of 9, allowing greater flexibility in terms of offering tee times, and also, crucially, in 21st century life, the opportunity for golfers with limited time on their hands to play 9 holes only. The new holes are set over a flatter terrain for easier walking compared to those holes to be lost to the residential development. And whilst the new fairways are ample in extent, there will still be an emphasis on putting the golf ball in the correct position to gain an advantage for the next shot. Equally, the new greens will be ample in size, but with subtle undulations and sharp drop-offs to the surrounding terrain, providing an exciting challenge for the golfer. Few bunkers are proposed, as there will be enough hazard provided by the existing and proposed ditches, swales, ponds, and roughs. These golfing hazard features fit well with our design ambitions in that they sit naturally within the environment and add either biodiversity value or serve a purpose from a hydrological perspective. The 6-hole par 3 course includes full-size greens built to the same specification as the greens on the main course. The holes will vary in length from 60 to 150 yards, with no long carries, making it ideal for those new to the game. It will also suit families or individuals who are subject to time pressures, and some senior players who perhaps may be reluctant to take on a full round. In addition, the current practice range will be upgraded with new covered bays, ball dispensing and collection facilities, and realistic target greens set into the outfield. A new practice putting green will be constructed and maintained to the same specification as all the other greens, providing consistent conditions for those practicing. So overall, we see a significant improvement in layout, challenge, flexibility of play, and therefore overall attractiveness of Helensburgh Golf Club as a local sports facility. Moving on to the second critical factor in the design process, we knew we were going to have to go into some good quality habitat to the north of the existing golf course to make a new layout work. And it was crucial that we designed the course in such a way that we minimised its impact on habitat by attempting to avoid the most sensitive areas. A considerable amount of time has been spent creating the iteration of the golf course that you see on the screen today. We have worked closely with the project ecologists and statutory consultees to locate golf holes in such a way that they avoid the most sensitive areas as much as practically possible. Equally, where golf holes are being placed, the area of managed playing surface has been kept to the very minimum footprint required for golf. You'll note from the layout that the course stays outside the areas of high value woodland, and this has been deliberate to protect this habitat. Inevitably, however, areas of the golf course do run through peatland. There are extensive swathes of this resource to the north of the existing golf course, and therefore avoiding it completely was simply impossible. That said, extensive survey work has been undertaken to get a detailed understanding of the extent and depths of the peat, and the course layout has been specifically designed to avoid, wherever possible, areas of deep peat and minimise overall impact. Importantly, where playing surfaces do run over peatland, we have developed a bespoke design in conjunction with our drainage engineers, which ensures the peat below the surface will be unaffected by the golf tees and greens positioned over the top. This design involves the profile of the golf tees and greens being built up on top of the peat, using a geogrid as a base, together with a permeable membrane between golf profile and peat layer. This ensures no physical elements can contaminate the peat below, whilst also serving to retain sufficient tensile strength to maintain consistent levels on the surface. Water can still pass down through the membrane and into the peat, allowing it to retain its current water holding capacity. And once this field capacity is reached, any excess water is drained into bespoke swales and other hydrological features, which take excess water away from sensitive habitats. Crucially, therefore, importantly, this design ensures that the hydrological properties of the area remain unchanged and the peat remains protected. The final aspect I want to mention in relation to design is the ongoing golf course maintenance and the landscaping. On the playing surfaces, a carefully designed maintenance program will be followed, which will ensure the grass plants only receive the minimum inputs they require to survive and thrive, therefore ensuring no potential nutrient enrichment of surrounding habitats. As for landscaping, the habitats present in the new northern section of the development area are such that little in the way of introduced landscape interest is required. Existing playing surface areas that are no longer needed will be converted into various different native habitat types, and the areas around the new holes to the north will be subject to a management programme to be agreed with NatureScot that will see areas of degraded habitat being brought back into favourable condition. This remediation of degrading habitat is a critical point to make, and as I referenced earlier, is something we have seen be used to great effect in many other sensitive sites. So to conclude, on the golf course design section, this course will offer an elevated experience for the golfer. The route has been carefully crafted in accordance with the results of a variety of surveys to minimise environmental impact, and the design processes employed will ensure that the course sits with the lightest of touches on the landscape. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. I would be grateful if you could now answer the question on the screen. Do you support the proposals for the redevelopment of the golf course? It just takes a few minutes to come through. Thank you very much indeed. That's extremely helpful for us. David Urquhart of Wellwood Leslie Architects will now explain the proposals for the new clubhouse. David.
Thanks, Andrew, and good morning, everyone. My name is David Urquhart. I represent Wellwood Leslie Architects, and we are appointed to the Helensburgh Golf Club to take the lead on the design of the new golf club clubhouse. Wellwood Leslie are a company who specialise in the golf and leisure sector with a wide variety of experience, the length and breadth of the country, including working closely with the Royal and Ancient Golf Club in St Andrews. As I say, we are taking the lead on the clubhouse design, and the first steps in developing the design concepts are to identify a suitable area in the proposals for building a clubhouse. The area we have identified is on or around the existing first green of the golf course, and in a clearing between trees on the hillside there. It takes advantage of some spectacular views over the Clyde Estuary, and the bonuses of picking this area is that we are minimising tree removal, and we have great connections to the golf course. As mentioned by Richard, we have connection to both the front and the back nine golf courses, and close connections to the new par 3 course as well to the east. In support of the clubhouse, we do have some infrastructure, including a new access road running up from the south, some new parking facilities as well, with parking bays to be distributed in pockets in amongst the trees, again to minimise any impact. And we are able to take advantage of some of the existing infrastructure with the existing green shed to the west of our site to be refurbished to include some additional facilities. The building proposals themselves are put together on the basis of a compact and efficient form factor. There's a number of reasons for this, but it includes a minimal impact on the actual ground and the footprint of the clubhouse, and there's some constructional efficiencies in wrapping the building in an efficient envelope. If we could go to the next slide. Thank you. In terms of the actual form of the building, it is proposed as a vernacular form of 2 pitched roofs side by side, which responds to the building typology in the area of pitched roofs and allows us to expel rainwater from the building easily. The materials chosen for the building include a cast stone or a natural cast stone to the lower level, and a metal cladding to the upper level and roof. We feel that the materials chosen are low maintenance and sympathetic to the area, and should hold up for a long time and give the clubhouse the quality feel that we're going for. The building is proposed as 2 stories with a split of generally members' facilities on the upper level and support facilities on the lower level. If we could go to the next slide. Seem to be missing some floor plans, if you could return. So on the lower level, we have a pro shop with overlook over the first tee of the golf course that will provide some retail facilities for both members and visiting golfers, and will allow the professionals and the staff at the club to manage visitors and members going out and coming back from the golf course. Also on the lower level, we have locker rooms and changing rooms, administration and storage facilities to support. On the upper level, we have a large multi-function function suite, general bar and members with views over the golf courses and over the Clyde Estuary, taking in the spectacular views. And this function suite is to be highly glazed to take advantage of some solar gain with the south-facing facades. In terms of sustainability, the building construction will be driven primarily by the building standards, but it will take the form of a highly insulated and airtight construction. The club have aspirations to service the clubhouse with as many renewables as possible, and that is currently inclusive of some solar PV which you can see in the top image there in between the two roofs, with additional heat pump and mechanical ventilation heat recovery technology proposed to ventilate, heat and cool the building. It will be a steel frame construction, which gives us a number of benefits there in terms of less time on site with pre-manufacturing off-site for the steel frame. And there's, again, constructional efficiencies with getting the building constructed fast, efficiently, and on and off site with minimal disruption. In support of the clubhouse, there will be some additional facilities. I mentioned that the existing green shed is to be repurposed. That will provide some storage facilities for the members and some teaching facilities in support of the Pro Shop. And we are also proposing a new green shed at the very northwest corner of the site. Access is to be provided via the A818 past the existing Argyll and Bute Roads Department depot. This will give us some good separation of domestic and commercial traffic, meaning that large-scale deliveries of materials for golf course maintenance are kept away from the road access for members and visitors coming to the club. So to conclude, we believe we've designed world-class facilities, first-class facilities, sorry. We're taking the club forward into the next phase of its life with facilities appropriate to the direction it's taking. It'll provide enhanced facilities for both local and visiting golfers, and will be a great facility for Helensburgh generally. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, David. I would be grateful if you could now answer the question on the screen. Do you support the proposals for the new clubhouse? And again, with download speeds, working from home, this just takes a second or two to come through. Great, thank you very much again. Graham Oswald of Taylor Wimpey will now explain the housing element of the proposals. Graham.
Hello everyone. Hello there. Hello everyone, thank you very much for attending today. My name is Graham Oswald. I am the Design and Planning Manager for Taylor Wimpey West Scotland. And today I'm going to talk to you about the changes that have taken place to the initial design, which we tabled on the first community engagement event back in February, and discuss with you obviously where our hopes and aspirations lie in terms of moving this forward towards a planning application submission. So just a brief overview, firstly on Taylor Wimpey, if I can. Taylor Wimpey, for those of you that are not aware, established in 2007. We operate across the full of the UK. We also have an operation in Spain. We have 23 regional offices within the UK, which gives us a great ability to work closely at a local level. As you may be aware, we are a company who invests heavily in the areas we work in. And in the same way as we do on all our new developments, we are looking to engage with Helensburgh community and continue to do that actively by exploring any ways that we can to help the development and help the community. For this development, like any other, we have utilised the community engagement strategy and will continue to engage during all stages of the development process to hopefully deliver what is much needed new housing for the local area. So by way of a sort of brief recap, we have a huge, exciting opportunity here in front of us, a joint application unique in every sense, delivering an upgraded recreational facility, new housing, new access, improved play and recreation and affordable housing. So it really does deliver on so many fronts, and we're proud to be part of of the discussions and the proposals moving forward. The gross acreage at 186 acres is broken down into a residential acreage, which you can see in front of us here, of 30.8 acres of parkland, allocated as residential within the local development plan. And really the whole point of having the section in front of us here is to let everyone see the challenges that we've had to face in terms of the topography, which Andrew touched on earlier. It has taken some time, over 5 months, in fact, from the last event up till this event, to do all the homework that we need to do to ensure that we can deliver this development, such as the challenges in front of us. Firstly, the civil engineering design was probably the most significant of challenges in terms of the residential parcel. To deliver a drainage design which is compliant with 1 in 200 year plus 55% increase to include for allowances made for climate change. The topography itself, clearly a huge challenge. There's a golf course design which has moved quite significantly since the last event, which Richard spoke of earlier. And we've also needed some time to resolve the affordable housing to ensure that what we come forward with on this development meets this very specific local needs of Helensburgh. So, looking at the section in front of us here, there has been a lot of detail gone into to arrive at a fairly detailed and finalised levels design. And this lets you see the tiering of the development from north to south. And each of these tiers is split up into platforms with a sustainable living wall retention system. We've got some certainty now on the floor level difference between the house. If you refer to the section in front of you, just at the right hand side there, at that house there is basically the proposed housing at the bottom, at the south of the western parcel as you look at the plan. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Gregor. So the level difference between that house and the existing houses in Macri Drive is something in the region of 4.1 at the moment. That is the design level, subject to further tweaks and revisions as the council may require. But certainly at the moment, this is what we are looking at in terms of a level difference between that house and the closest house on Macri Drive. So moving on now to the design changes, we had a very successful pre-application meeting with the planning officer and his colleagues at Argyll and Bute Council. And firstly, I'm just going to touch on the community benefits that this development brings. Improved access into the land to enjoy the stunning views to the south over the Clyde estuary. But more than that, we have improved integration, improved access via footpath links. That something that Argyll and Bute Council felt pretty strongly about, and we endorse that. We agree that we need to integrate as much as we possibly can. So, new footpath connection from plot 16 to 20 at the northwest boundary, connecting with the golf club access road. New footpath connection at plot 74 down at the eastern boundary at the southeast, and that joins up with the Garraway Glen path, giving people a circular walk, an opportunity for improved health and recreation and well-being within the area. New footpath connections from Kent Drive to the south into the core path, Old Lush Road, which we'll put some more detail on later on in the presentation, and a further connection just to the east of that, taking you up into the most easterly point of the residential development from Kent Drive. So that basically summarises the footpath connections. We've also got stone features, stone benches core path transitions and directional totems. And these are going to be located in very specific areas where the residential core road crosses the core path. Hugely important part of the detail, which we can talk about a little bit more detail shortly. The SUDS design is going to be incorporated within the wider landscape and accessibility strategy for the site, with potential seating and/or informal play. And we at Taylor Wimpey have got an adoptions department, a bit of reassurance on the whole subject of creating and constructing these basins and having them brought to an adoptable standard and handed over for adoption as early as we can. So we have a department that's devoted specifically to that, to try and ensure that happens smoothly and as early as possible. We've obviously got the new recreational facility of the golf club and golf course, which we've talked about. And we've got dual aspect housing overlooking streets, open space and pocket parks to provide well supervised streets and safe and pleasant streets for people to enjoy. These dual aspect houses obviously look over as many parts of open space as we can. On the subject of open space, we'll be looking to complete any areas of open space and have them handed over in a phased manner to the management company, so that what people are buying into is any house that's associated or close to a piece of open space, they've immediately got an environment to enjoy as early as possible. So we think that that's what our customers deserve, but we also think that that's what the public deserve as the development evolves and access improves into the land for the general public. Other changes that have taken place, we have bus stops located on the circular core road, improving transport connections to the town and beyond. A pumping station and substation to service our service needs. The pumping station will be beneath ground. The substation will have a housing and landscaping to ensure that it blends with the area and with materials used on site. The fairly significant change at the front of the site at East Abercrombie Street is the fact that following the meeting with the council, the roads department wanted the residential traffic to be separated from the golf club traffic. And by way of including an independent access road which sits without any housing fronting onto it, and that is for a road safety matter that the council were very keen to ensure that we didn't mix residential traffic with commercial traffic, and this is why the design has started to shape up in the way that you can see here. But what it does actually is give us a great opportunity for strong entrance feature via landscaping, entrance features such as walling. There'll be 2 plots which will directly front onto East Abercrombie Street from our large range, with the cul-de-sac courtyard that you can see in front of you, with a further 3 or 4 units, should I say, fronting onto Sannox Place. And that probably gives you a flavour for the work that's been done to try and get that working properly in accordance with council requirements. There'll be entrance features either side of the golf club access road as well. We have taken out the factored tree belts on the western parcel and taken them into private gardens to ensure that they are maintained adequately. We feel that that's probably on balance the correct decision, and like I said, the living wall retention system is going to provide a strong sustainable retaining solution for the platforming. We've tried to avoid any long linear streets in terms of horizontal changes, in direction, traffic calming, material changes, landscape features to break up the streetscape, the street scene. And it's also worth noting that as per the advice we were given from the planning department, we are going to have plenty of flowering cherry trees, because I do believe this is a local theme in Helensburgh, and just be reassured that will certainly feature strongly as you walk through the development should we be successful during securing a planning consent. So the affordable housing, 62 units plus a further 16 units down in the southern triangular site, so 62 and 16, making 78, and 229 private units. So essentially 25% of the total 307 will be affordable housing. We have 1 metre wide filtration trenches to deal with road drainage. Again, part of the 1 in 200 year plus 55% climate change requirements. The parking will be as per council policy, and the visitor parking, whilst there's no specific policy, we have provided as much as we possibly can on the development. We have assessed the design against Building for Healthy Life, which is a TW document to ensure that it delivers on all 12 chapters: connections, facilities, services, public transport, housing, character, context, streets and spaces, navigation, streets for all, car parking, public, private, storage. Looking at the landscaping, we certainly are continuing on the theme of planting where we can across the full of the development with nature-friendly planting, proposing 1 acre to be reserved for landscape buffers, which will be particularly high value in terms of habitat creation. We are essentially looking to achieve, and we will achieve, a position where the biodiversity on the development will be increased once the development is completed, including the golf course redevelopment and mature. And once it's been given time to reach that stage, we will be in a biodiversity net gain situation. And again, this is something that Taylor Wimpey prides itself on for new developments. The sustainability strategy, which I'm basically touching on now, is a Taylor Wimpey strategy that's been launched this year. Very proud of what it's aiming to do. And each of a couple of things I'll just run through that are very important within the strategy. Hedgehog highways incorporated within all development plots, allowing these endangered species to traverse and migrate through the development without being trapped. And our customers will be advised as to what the purpose of these. We're going to have bug hotels for invertebrates. We're going to have bee bricks within garages at high level within houses away from windows. Not on every plot, but they're definitely going to feature in some capacity. Again, this is in line with our sustainability strategy. We're going to have bird boxes and bat boxes, and the quantity of these will be still to be confirmed, but that's currently being worked on at the moment. And the houses will be built to the new building standards, which are due to be launched in May 2022, which is a huge improvement on the CO2 emissions, a huge reduction on CO2 emissions compared to the current 2015 building standards. The core path design is now the next feature that I'm going to talk about, and this is unique in every sense for a new housing development to come forward, and the developer being asked to maintain, retain, and also integrate with an old public right of way of this nature is exciting for us. Possibly dating back as long as the 13 or 1400s, Old Lush Road and Old Drovers Route. We're looking to treat it as sensitively as possible, maintaining its character, reinforcing the existing gorse and alder vegetation, adding some new hawthorn planting, some native whips, some wildflower, some informal play with areas of amenity within areas of amenity grass, access connections to the proposed development. We're going to have raised traffic calming nodes where the new roads cross the core path, and these will blend into community breakout spaces. These areas will have stone features, benches, directional totems leading people north and south on the core path. Now that we're entering the stage where we're examining the appropriate detail for the core path itself, we're proposing a meeting, hopefully very soon, with Helensburgh and District Access Trust. I'm now going to pull up some 3D visualizations. The first one is looking east from the core road, and that's taking in the central play area, or the edge of the central play area to the right. All this information will be available online on Taylor Wimpey's website and Montague Evans' website, so that people can look at it at their leisure, but they can zoom in and have a look at, you know, what it is that we can visualize here with each of these 3D images. So the first one from plot 20 looking east, and the second one from plot 2B on the triangular affordable site looking north on the core path. It lets you see the community breakout space, it lets you see the core path itself, the informal play, and we've tried to keep the height of the vegetation down slightly on the visualization, just so that people can appreciate the scale and the level of the housing units as it interacts with the core path via some dual aspect properties. And that concludes the presentation for today in terms of the housing and where we've got to so far. And we look forward to continuing the journey with the community as we move through the planning process. As I say, more details available within the Taylor Wimpey websites and also Montague Evans' website. So finally, I just want to thank everyone again for listening to what we have to say, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Finally, Ewan MacDonald of Dunbritton Housing Association will discuss the proposals in relation to the provision of on-site affordable housing. Ewan.
Thanks, Andrew, and good morning, everyone. I'm Ewan MacDonald and I work for Gregor Cameron Contracts Limited. We are development agents for Dunbritton Housing Association, acting as project managers on their new build housing developments. We've been working with Dunbritton for a number of years and have managed the construction of several housing developments for them in Argyll and West Dunbartonshire. The association are currently working with Helensburgh Golf Club and Taylor Wimpey to deliver the affordable housing element for the proposed development, which we hope will go some way in meeting the significant demand for affordable housing in the area. The design of the houses is progressing, and since the last consultation event, we have agreed the mix of house sizes and types with Argyll and Bute Council's Housing Services Department to make sure that the affordable homes built address the housing need in the area. The proposals for affordable housing now include 78 homes for affordable rent. The house mix incorporates 4 in a block cottage flats, detached, semi-detached and terraced houses, ranging in size from 1-bedroom flats up to 4 and 5-bedroom houses. This includes both general needs housing and housing with specialist provision for wheelchair users and older people. Should the planning application be successful, then the next step for the association is to work with the Scottish Government and Argyll and Bute Council to secure the funding to develop the affordable housing, along with any infrastructure needed to service the new houses. Those interested in the application process for the affordable housing should visit homeargyll.co.uk, where they can find out more. I'd just like to finish off by saying that Dunbritton are very much looking forward to delivering these high quality, energy efficient, affordable homes for Helensburgh, and we'd appreciate any feedback that you might have on the proposals. Thanks for listening, and if you have any questions, then I'll do my best to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ewan. I would now be grateful if you could answer the question on the screen. Do you support the proposed housing development at Helensburgh Golf Club? Thank you very much. That's really helpful. Okay, Gregor, if we just move on to our final slide, please. We trust that the information provided today has been helpful in terms of improving your understanding of our development proposals following the earlier consultation this year. We now welcome your further thoughts. Your views are important to us, and we will consider any further comments provided following this second consultation event prior to our planning application submission. As I mentioned at the outset, copies of our consultation boards and further information are also available on the websites shown on the screen. If you have any questions, please enter them now into the chat box and we will try to provide a response today. You can also complete a feedback form on our websites or email comments to hgcdevelopment@montague-evans.co.uk. So we'll now move to questions. Gregor, do we have questions for the panel, please?
Yeah, we do. Thanks, Andy. First question here, I think, Graham, this might be one for you. Will the new houses be net zero?
Thanks, Gregor. So, yeah, these houses are not going to be net zero. The development, firstly, net zero is some way in the future, although not in the distant future. But this development will be built in accordance with the new emerging building regulations. Now, these emerging building regulations are currently subject to a period of industry consultation. As soon as that consultation is complete, the new regulations will be enforced from May next year, and the full of this development will be constructed in accordance with these brand new regulations, which will mark a step change and significant reduction in CO2 emissions from what is being achieved with the current 2015 regulations. And Taylor Wimpey fully supports the Future Homes Task Force, whose responsibility it is to drive the industry towards net zero, the energy part by 2030 and the net zero construction element by 2040. But no, the development won't be net zero, but it will be to the new building regulations. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Graham. The next question relates to the golf course. So, Richard, I'll bring you in at this point. How much of the golf course development will be taken into the Black Hill Mire?
Thanks very much for that. Yeah, essentially in the Black Hill Mire, the extent is in the northwestern quadrant of the development. Within that area, there are 5 new golf holes, and the total playing surface area of those golf holes is 3.68 hectares.
Thanks, Richard. And staying with yourself, if that's okay, how many trees will be felled during the construction of the new golf course? And will this include any mature trees, including Scots pine, oak or beech? And if so, will any trees be planted to compensate, and what type will those be?
Thank you. Well, the proposed Par 3 short course would impact on the existing maturing birch woodland along the north edge of the track, which extends from the Greenkeepers facility to the Black Hill Road depot. Smaller groups of alder and birch trees will need to be removed to make way for the new golf holes. Removal of birch, mature Sitka spruce and silver birch trees from groups which frame the existing 7th, 13th and 16th greens will occur. Several of the small scattered trees are likely to be lost through new greens and fairways construction across the Black Hill Mire, although, as we know, the Black Hill Mire is designated for a number of other things rather than trees alone. We've reviewed the findings of our tree survey work and have amended the scheme design to ensure that good specimens are retained wherever possible. We also have a landscape consultant who will consider the opportunity for appropriate compensatory planting to mitigate any tree loss. The detail of the new tree planting is still being finalised. However, we can confirm that a very significant number of compensatory trees will be planted across the full master plan to mitigate the impact of any existing tree loss. And many of these will be native species and replacement species for those lost during construction of the golf course.
Thanks, Richard. And sticking on the theme of trees, are you aware of the tree preservation orders on the Black Hill Wood at the top of the present golf course and the Black Hill plantation, which runs behind the houses on Abercrombie Crescent?
Sorry, yes, we are aware of those. We've designed the new golf course to try and minimise impact on any TPO trees. As I described in my introduction before, everything we've done with regards to golf course design has been taking into account the surveys that have been undertaken on the site. 4 or 5 trees will need to be removed, TPO trees will need to be removed to create the new golf holes. There are a further 20 TPO trees and 2 groups of mature birch woodland requiring removal to form the buildings, road access and parking areas.
Great, thanks, Richard. John, question for you here. Will the general public have access to the new clubhouse? John, are you still on the call?
Okay, got it. There's a wee technical problem there. The general public can, through functions and events, be there, signed in by members, and there's also a facility for becoming a house member, not a playing member, to use the clubhouse. And if there's sufficient demand for it, the club will look at an open license arrangement where the general public can come in. We'll assess that as time goes on. Okay.
That's great. Thanks, John. Thanks, John. Graham, another one for you. How will the residents of Macri Drive be protected from noise and other impacts during the construction period for the residential element?
Thanks, Gregor. Yeah, so obviously the Macri Drive is close to the development, and Argyll, Taylor Wimpey and Argyll and Bute Council will be working closely with pollution control and environmental health to determine what the appropriate working hours and restrictions are that should be imposed to ensure that none of the existing residents within Macri Drive or any of the surrounding streets are adversely affected by construction noise out with normal daytime working. So yes, absolutely committed to working with Argyll and Bute Council pollution control on that front. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Graham. And sticking with yourself, if that's okay, are you absolutely certain that the drainage system in Helensburgh can cope with both sewage and foul water from the new development?
Yes, so as I was touching on at the start of the presentation, there's been a whole load of homework that we've had to do on this development to ensure that it does meet the needs of. So yeah, in short, the design has been tested against the 1 in 200 year plus 55% climate change in respect of surface water, and in line with current planning and environmental guidance. This incorporates on-site storage with excess flows and volumes in extreme rainfall events to ensure the development does not discharge any more water than it does presently. So we have to prove that through calculation, data, modelling, and that all forms part of our planning submission. The fill system has been designed in accordance with Scottish Water requirements, and confirmation has been provided by Scottish Water in relation to the existing system capacity. So we've had that information now and designed in accordance with that to ensure that there is no risk to any of the adjacent properties in respect of foul or surface water drainage. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. And another one for yourself, which is quite pertinent given we're all on Zoom today. What digital connectivity will be provided in the residential development?
So this is something that we've realised over the recent years, and no more so than now, as you say, Gregor, the importance of fast and reliable data connections to new housing. You know, selling new housing now is absolutely one of the sort of stick-on utilities that's required and expected of us. So yes, there will be BT fibre installed within the Helensburgh development, and so that will be served to each and every plot. Thank you.
That's great, thank you. I think the next question might also be for you, Graham, just to keep you on, and it relates to sort of the construction impacts of the development, particularly in relation to East Abercrombie Street and Sinclair Street. So I just want to say a bit more about the construction phase and how that'll be managed to ensure there's no significant impacts in those areas.
So during our planning application process, David Moore, the planning officer, has specifically said that he will request from us a very detailed phasing plan, and this will be broken down into areas around, you know, managing the existing infrastructure safely and with as little disruption as possible, and that includes for East Abercrombie Street and Sinclair Street. It will go into all sorts of detail on, you know, what vehicles should be entering from, you know, what streets, and the timings of all of that, and clearly a detailed phasing as to what parts of the development are going to be built first. And yeah, so that all forms part of the planning submission, and will be considered by Argyll and Bute Council via their roads authority to ensure that everyone is content that the development is coming forward as smoothly as possible, and to provide as little disruption as possible to the existing residents and the existing streets. Thank you.
Thanks very much. The next query relates to how many people we have at the event today, so I can just take that one. I think we're peaking at about 45 people on the call today, which is a great turnout, and I would add also that we're recording the event and it'll be made available on both the Montague Evans and Taylor Wimpey websites after the event. So for anyone who hasn't been able to make it today, that will be available there, and we'd be happy to take any queries to the email address, which is on their website as well. Returning, sorry, Graham, back to you again. In relation to any impacts on East Abercrombie Street and damages to the road surface there, how would that be prevented or mitigated during the construction phase?
Thanks, Gregor. What we will need to do, like any of our new developments, is we'll need to do a full dilapidation survey of existing streets to understand the condition of these. And if Argyll and Bute Council Roads Department feel that you know, there are areas of those existing streets which are currently in a state that, you know, further traffic loading or impact as a result of the construction of a development is going to cause an issue there, that would be for Argyll and Bute to open up those discussions with us. And, you know, so all of that sort of detail will be flushed out during the application process. But the roads department at Argyll and Bute will be looking at the condition of the current condition of these roads, and also assessing, the traffic loading as a result of the construction work to understand whether there is something they need to discuss with us in respect of that. But at the moment, we haven't had any discussions on that particular front. The application process will flush all of these issues out.
That's great, thank you. We've got a couple of queries here about access. So the first one is the sole point of access from East Abercrombie Street, or is there an access from the east end of the housing site? Graham, I don't know if you want to speak to that and just expand on that in terms of the transport assessment work which has been undertaken.
Yes, no problem, Gregor. It might be useful to actually track back to the slide showing the development, just so that everyone can see in context what it is that we're talking about here. So we will have vehicular and pedestrian access from East Abercrombie Street now via the independently served access road. It's the access road which will independently serve both golf club and residential traffic. The addition to that is we will also have pedestrian access proposed just slightly further down, just in there, yeah. So there'll be a pedestrian access point there which will take you through this courtyard and through the cul-de-sac and up and into the development. There will be further access points, as we had discussed earlier on in the presentation, via the southern boundary. So one of these access points will be through obviously the core path. A further access point will be through the triangular site at the Dunbritton development, and that will link into the core path so that people within this corner of Kent Drive housing will be able to just get direct and quick access onto the core path. There will then be a further access point to the southeast, which will, actually there's two. If you just move your cursor slightly left there, a bit further, that's right. So there's another access point going to be proposed in here into the development, and then lastly the one that you hovered over initially, and that's going to connect up with the Garraway Glen path. Now this is all subject to Argyll and Bute agreement. This is what we would propose in terms of integration and permeability through the site, and the phasing of the development. What we would propose at the moment, or what we would envisage at the moment, is that the links to the East Abercrombie Street and into the development are likely to be formed first, along with the link through the Dunbritton triangular site. The Dunbritton triangular site should be the part of the housing that comes forward the earliest. So in terms of phasing of these connections, you can see the Dunbritton connection potentially being delivered fairly early, and then you'll be looking at the connections from East Abercrombie Street, and then lastly you'll be looking at the connections to the southeast. And that would be the sort of order that we would envisage in terms of the when these connections would be made available and constructed and open to the public. Hope that answers it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kurt. Staying on the same theme, I suppose just as a point of clarification, will all of those accesses also be available for cycle access?
Sorry, was that cycle access you said, Gregor?
Yeah, it is, yeah, cycle access.
Yeah. So it's an interesting question, because we have had the first pre-application meeting with Argyll and Bute Council, and we spoke in quite detail about pedestrian access. And at the moment, we haven't had specific requests as to any particular widths that we should be working to for these connections. And I think that will get flushed out in our next pre-application meeting, which we are hoping to have as early as next week. where we will be asking more questions on access generally in terms of pedestrians and cyclists. And the council will be able to guide us as to how we form these connections and the width that they would need to be at if they're going to be used by cyclists, which we would envisage they would be. In terms of the development itself, the design will be done in a fashion that, in accordance with designing streets and residential design policy for the council, the road network will be designed to keep traffic speeds down to 20 miles an hour maximum speed, and that means that these road surfaces should be suitable for all users, so vehicles, pedestrians and cyclists. So whilst an awful lot of the development does have an actual footpath for pedestrians, we think that development will be safe for cycle users to use the road network, given that it's designed to a 20 mile an hour maximum speed. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. We've had a couple of queries here. Just building on, you mentioned the bus stops which will be provided as part of your presentation. I wonder if you could just say a bit more on which bus route that will be on and how it will link in with the services in the wider Helensburgh area.
Thanks, Gregor. Yeah, well, this is fairly unique in the sense that there was definitely a need to look at a bus route for incorporating the development, and for us, the detail of where that bus goes and how frequent those buses are, it'll be good to establish that in the future, and hopefully fairly early in the future. It all depends on estimated demand, whether there's a bus company that have done the research and feel that the traffic loading, the pedestrian loading there absolutely demands the service. And initially you would expect it would go down to Helensburgh town centre. Now, where it goes beyond that is still up for discussion, and I think all of that detail will start to emerge as we move through the planning process and have further discussions with the council on that. They will better understand whether there's an operator that would be looking into this as early as this. So there's more information to come on that, and we'll be reporting back as soon as we get information on it. But the bus stops will be every 400 metres round the perimeter core road within the development, and that's what's proposed at the moment, allowing people easy access to public transport.
Great, thanks, Graham. And just a very quick one, just a clarification from yourself that all of the vehicular access is proposed to be via East Abercrombie Street.
Yeah, so at the moment our proposals have all the vehicular access from East Abercrombie Street via, that's correct, that's the connection there. And what that's been designed to minimise the amount of direct connections into East Abercrombie Street. And there will be the small triangular section down at the south, which is the Dunbritton owned land, and there will be a vehicular access in from Kent Drive into that portion of the development. So yes, vast majority accessed off of East Abercrombie Street.
Thanks, Graham. We'll move on from the access related issues to now. We've had a couple of questions about the associated infrastructure, which I'll just try and sum up into one. Basically, the gist is if you could maybe just say a bit about consideration that's been made in terms of the impact of the development on local schools, provision of doctors, dentists, etc., and consideration in that regard.
Thanks, Gregor. Yeah, so the local amenities, services, infrastructure have all been considered, and we have liaised with the council to ask questions as to, what their view is on any potential upgrades to services or upgrades to infrastructure or addition to existing services. And so far, we have the council have not come forward and said that there is any requirement. The previous examination of projected schooling numbers, which was done, and it will be done again clearly during the planning process, said that there was capacity within the existing schools for the development when it's fully populated. So that was the last assessment that was done by Argyll and Bute Council. They will clearly refresh that assessment when the application comes forward. And in addition to that, they will have a look at local services such as GP practices, etc. But certainly at the moment, there has been no indication that there's any need for any additional services, and there's probably more detail to come on that once we submit the application and receive detailed feedback. And the same goes for the local roads infrastructure. The traffic assessment at the moment stipulates that the traffic loading and the stacking at junctions does not require any upgrade to the existing roads infrastructure. However, we have said to Argyll and Bute Council, we will submit that traffic assessment, and ultimately is for Argyll and Bute Council to determine whether that is indeed their findings of the report and of the studies, and then we will take matters from there. But at the moment, there is no planned upgrade of infrastructure or services within the Helensburgh area.
Thanks, Graham.
Gregor, I was just going to add to that point that the residential component of the development is an allocated site within the Argyll and Bute Council's local development plan, and it has been in there now for some time. And the process that takes place prior to an allocation is quite involved in terms of looking at infrastructure, at capacity, including all general council services, which we'll use education here as an example. So we will, as Graham has indicated, we will continue to liaise with the planning authority and the council services during the course of the application. But it's very much the case at the moment that we are bringing forward a planning application for the residential component in accordance with the local development plan. And I think that's just worth highlighting and backing up the points that Graham has made. But as has been discussed already, there may be updates from different council services as we go forward as a result of internal and external consultation that we will have to take account of if these matters are raised once the application is submitted.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks both. Thanks for that. Graham, sorry, back to you again. I know you spoke briefly during your presentation about the phasing of development. We've had a question: when is the expected time for the first homes to be built? So I don't know if you want to cover off the wider phasing within that question.
No problem. Thanks, Gregor. The site is it's a fairly complex site, and it requires some fairly significant work to take place initially to allow the golf club to gain access to the proposed new site of the proposed clubhouse, and that will be the first piece of work which is going to take place on the development should we secure a planning consent. So you'll be looking at the initial 6 to 8 months for that work to complete. And then thereafter, we would be commencing a full earthworks exercise on the development. Now, our hope is that we can start at some stage in 2023. Very difficult to pinpoint exactly when, but I think in the latter part of 2023, certainly in the second half of that year, we would hope to be in a position to start house building construction, and that's clearly we've got the sales area that we would be proposing, which would be at the front of the site, East Abercrombie Street, and that would come forward perhaps slightly earlier. But in terms of the main body of housing for the general public to purchase, well, we're looking at the second half of 2023 is probably the earliest time that we would be commencing the house build construction. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. Thanks for that. The next question is, will there be opportunities for training or apprenticeship opportunities included through the construction phase of the development?
Thanks, Gregor. So Taylor Wimpey, I've always tried to ensure that they take on new trainees and new apprenticeships throughout every year, and that will happen automatically. And as our business grows, and as the demand for skill and new skill on the development and on the construction industry grows, then absolutely we would be continuing on that programme of recruiting new apprenticeships, as regularly as possible, and the plan would be to do that on an annual basis. And clearly that would give people an opportunity, young people within the Helensburgh area or the surrounding area, an opportunity should they feel that actually we have a development here that's close by and an exciting one at that. So therefore, it does reach out and give that opportunity. But something that Taylor Wimpey have always been committed to is refreshing and renewing our apprenticeship scheme, and that's something that will continue. So therefore, that will hopefully be of interest to some people for this particular development. Thank you.
Thanks very much. The next couple of questions are relating to the Dunbritton Housing Association elements. So Ewan, I'll perhaps bring you in at this point, and Graham, you might want to speak as well after in terms of the integration. So the question is, why is the affordable housing separated into specific areas rather than dispersed throughout the development? And linked to that, will the Dunbritton Housing Association development be an integrated part of the development with full access to all the facilities, such as the play parks, which are included within the development?
I'll take the second question first, if that's okay. Dunbritton's small development in the triangle of the site served by Kent Drive, it'll have footpath links to the wider development, and as such, the tenants in that area would have the benefit of any green space and play areas in the wider development. In terms of why the affordable housing is grouped together, it's the association's preference. It's easiest to manage and maintain when the houses are together, and if they were more interspersed, then there would likely be higher factoring charges, which would ultimately be passed on to the tenants, which we'd want to avoid. The other consideration is that the area of land of Kent Drive is currently owned by the association, and there's the possibility that we might be able to deliver that in advance of the rest of the affordable housing. So we might get people in these houses sooner by keeping them within that triangle. Not sure if Graham has anything to add.
Thanks, Ewan. No, not much else to add there. I think the site is a challenging, really challenging site levels wise. We have got a very distinct road pattern, which, by definition, in terms of the level difference between north and south, it really has to take the shape that it's drawn and designed as, and that's the shape that you can see on your screen today. So yeah, the fact that in terms of the management of the housing association as it comes forward, I agree with you in that it certainly does help to have the affordable housing in that specific area, but ultimately it will be subject to the planning application discussions, and we will be waiting to see what Argyll and Bute Council feel about that, and it will be our challenge to make sure actually that as you're walking through this development, the landscape structure, implementation, the species, the presence of hedging, and all these sorts of things, including dual aspect housing, are done really sensitively so that it all reads as one development. So the materials that are used on the affordable housing units will be the same as the private units, and therefore hopefully just reading as one full development. But ultimately, it will be subject to further discussions and negotiations with the council during the plan application process. Thank you.
Gregor, I've noticed a number of environmental related queries coming in, and I just wanted to briefly touch on a couple of aspects there. The site has been, the whole site has been subject to an environmental impact assessment, and we're looking at bringing all of that information together under a single accessible document, the environmental statement, which will be part of the planning application submission. And that encompasses a wide range of technical survey work which has been undertaken on the ground. Just to give you a flavour for some of these areas, the flood risk drainage, traffic, ecological assessments, including protected species surveys, archaeological, landscape and visual impact, clearly very important here, landscape strategy, and indeed the replanting proposals around about all of that, ground investigation work, tree survey work, which was referred earlier, and importantly peat survey work as well. I'm not sure, Richard, if you have any further thoughts beyond your earlier presentation on how consideration has been taken into account of these factors in the wider course design. If you maybe want to touch briefly on that, please, that would be very interesting.
Yeah, sure. Well, only really just to pick up, I think it was raised earlier or noted earlier that the golf course layout that we're presenting today is somewhat different from what you'll have seen at the previous consultation event. And the reason for that is not for the golf course benefit, but purely for environmental protection benefit. All of the changes that you see between the last consultation event and this have been because of a reaction to the results of all the environmental survey work that Andrew has just mentioned to you all there. So as has been stated, there has been a broad range of surveys undertaken, and we have responded to that by amending the golf course layout. That's not only to minimise impacts on the peat by avoiding the deep peat areas. We've avoided ancient woodland, which I noted a comment coming up on that. And the peat itself, I think I mentioned earlier, but just to reiterate, the peat, where we are going into that area of peat, we have a very bespoke design engineering solution known as a floating road. It's not a road, obviously, but the concept is a floating road in that it sits on top of the sensitive habitat is the peat. Is something similar that is used in cases where you have archaeological interest under a site, a development site. You can construct on top of that using a floating road system, and that therefore protects the underlying important archaeology in that case, peat in this case. So my point being that whilst we are going into areas of peat, we are not going to remove the peat or change the hydrology of the peat in any way. So environmental protection, as I mentioned at the start of my initial presentation, has been at the forefront of the whole design process.
Thanks, everyone. And there are a few very specific questions with regard to certain species and environmental impacts, which we'll try and cover off later if we can, and if not, we can cover that off through our FAQ after the event. Moving back to affordable housing, Ewan, how will the affordable housing be protected to stop investors buying it up at affordable prices and selling it on for profit?
Thanks. None of the affordable housing is for sale, so it'll be owned by Dumbarton Housing Association and rented out at affordable levels in perpetuity.
That's great. Thanks, Ewan. Graham, back to yourself. I think you previously mentioned handing over of the landscape to a management company. I don't know if you want to speak a bit more about that, as to how that will impact the residents and public access to the core paths, etc.
Thanks, Gregor. So there's a significant number of houses on this development, which means the funding that is given to the estates manager and management company is obviously done in a sort of proportionate basis. So so there will be fairly modest sums in terms of the factoring on this development for each unit, because of the high volume of units that we've got in front of us here. With regards to public access to any areas, well, what we will be doing is making sure that the products that we use, for example, in play equipment, will be extremely robust with very, very long life warranties and guarantees. You know, Robinia timber, for example, if the council agree to us using Robinia timber, this has a very long proven lifespan, and you know, we can provide more details on that. Actually, looking at the access paths, again, the construction of the access paths is clearly very important. The council will be requesting that we prove through cross-sectional details a robust specification for these access paths, and that again is to make sure that they are durable and long-lasting and not going to become a burden to the residents within the development. The core path, similarly, you know, that will be subject to further discussions with the council, but you know, that core path has been in existence for a long time and is clearly very robust, and you know, and that in itself, it sort of proves that you know, as long as these areas are certainly the new footpath links are constructed properly and to a good robust detail, then they will last a long time with very little ongoing further maintenance. But I'd like to go back to that point of there being lots of residents on this development to contribute, so therefore the factoring bills would not appear to be anything onerous in that respect. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks. Another one for yourself, Graham, if that's okay. Just a query around the gardens for the new units and the specifications of those, specifically in relation to drainage. But I don't know if you want to cover off the gardens as a whole as part of that?
No problem. Yeah, the gardens are, especially now what we've came through in terms of COVID. You know, these are massively important outdoor spaces for our customers, and they really are high up the agenda, and therefore, you know, as much as we have always tried to pride ourselves on making sure that we get it right all the time, there are always going to be the odd instance, isolated instance where there's an issue, and it can be a number of factors that have caused it. You know, I know of one locally within Helensburgh, which you know, may be being referred to here, but you know, that was a fairly isolated incident, and one that we took action very quickly to resolve. But ultimately you need 300 minimum of subsoil and then 300 of topsoil to comply with NHBC requirements, and that is what we will be guaranteeing. We will be looking to ensure that every plot has got that. In terms of drainage, we will again assess every plot in respect of surface water drainage, but clearly on this site there's going to be a lot of focus on the sort of the future surface water arrangements to ensure that, you know, no gardens are going to have issues there. So especially given the location, so every garden is going to be assessed to ensure correct soil depth and whether or not there is any specific drainage requirements. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. The next question relates to water supply. I think we've previously had a question about water pressure. So the question is really, what will you do to ensure water supplies are maintained to the area?
So given the elevation on this site, I can understand why that question would be asked. And as part of our technical design, we have a water design that needs to be approved by Scottish Water in respect of water pressure, and that will be assessed to basically look at peak demand and ensure that we have the minimum legal requirements of pressure to the taps within the new houses. So that is a standard regulation which we will absolutely need to prove that we can comply with prior to us being granted any technical approval for the water design on the development. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Graham. We have had a couple of questions relating to safety for children and the play areas, so I'll just try and tie them up into one, if that's okay. I suppose maybe, Graham, if you could just say a bit more about the various play areas which are proposed within the site and open space. And then the second query on that is, will only residents of the estate be able to use these facilities, or will people from the rest of Helensburgh be able to benefit from these as well?
Thanks, Gregor. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if you're able to zoom in at all on the plan just around the centre of the development, if at all possible, so that we can touch on some of the detail here. Probably just another quick notch. Yeah, that's good. Thanks. So looking at the central play area first, we've specifically been asked by the council to introduce additional dual aspect product. So on the subject of the central area here, you can see that there's some large units to the north. So just to the north of the central area, I don't know if you could maybe point those out, Gregor. Yeah, that's right. So see the two houses that are closest to the the road. They actually gable onto the road. Yeah, those two houses there are dual aspect dwellings, which basically mean they've got new additional windows serving the habitable rooms, so such as lounge, dining rooms, and also bedrooms, which are going to overlook the central park, and that's really to make sure that the central park is really well supervised with passive supervision. There's also going to be, I don't know if you can see the left house, left-hand side of the central area, there's a dual aspect house there, and then to the right, Gregor, yeah, that's a dual aspect house there. So these have all got lots of windows, together with any other houses that are nearby that are going to be overlooking the central open space. The pocket parks, if we look at the one just to the sort of slightly south of centre and to the left, so just to the left, if you move to the left, Gregor, yeah, that's right. So that one there, and also the one just northwest slightly. Just north, no, where you were, but just slightly further northwest. That's right. So that's the two pocket parks, both of which have got dual front, dual aspect product, which have got additional windows which overlook these pocket parks to ensure that they are secure, well supervised, and a happy environment for young toddlers. That's certainly the plan for these areas at the moment. We've also got informal play, which will be along the core path, proposing some informal play there on either side of the core path. And again, we've got dual aspect product which overlooks the core path to ensure that it's well looked after. So access is taken through various connections. So yes, ultimately there will be the ability for people out with the development to walk into the development and utilise some of the play equipment. And you know, this is the same for any development, any new development across the country, and not just to Taylor Wimpey, but any new housing development. There is usually always access for the public in to use that development play area should they want to. So this will be no different, but obviously the vast majority of people will be residents within the development that will be using it. I hope that answers it. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Graham. We just had, staying on the same theme, a query about will the play equipment also be suitable for children with disabilities and wheelchair friendly with disabled access?
Yes, is the short answer to that question. There will be accessible equipment for people with physical limitations, also with learning difficulties. Access for all, play area for all, with the gradients of the footpaths into these areas will be compliant with, so DDA compliant basically for wheelchair use, and the equipment itself will include equipment that can be used by people with particular needs. Thank you.
That's great.
I was just going to add to that. We had an interesting discussion with the planning officer at the pre-application stage, indeed, along with the access officer, on play equipment and play areas, and they too, as the planning authority, quite rightly are taking a very active interest to ensure that we do have a good cross-section of play equipment for varying ages and abilities. So it is something we're going to be continuing to engage with the planning authority on, and I think a very important point for the provision of play equipment generally, not only in this development but in any development.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks both. We've had a few queries which I think probably all fall under sustainability. So again, I'll try and ask these in a one. Again, sorry, Graham, probably for you. So we had a few queries about the use of heat pumps, electric car charging, and solar panels. So I don't know if you just want to say a little bit about the sustainability credentials of the housing, just to cover off all those queries.
No problem, Gregor. Yeah, thanks. Well, it's a good question, and to be honest, something that we touched on earlier when the question was asked on compliance, regulation compliance, and the consultation paper at the moment for these new regulations has only just been released for industry consultation. So we have yet to establish what the Scottish Government have decided on in respect of the new regulations and the demands, in terms of energy. What we can say is that given that it will be, clearly going to be quite a significant reduction in CO2 emissions compared to the current regulations, we will be exploring what renewable technologies that we will require to comply with those regulations. That work cannot be fully completed clearly until we get an exact steer from the consultation on the new regulations as to what those energy requirements are. But as soon as we get that, we'll be working hard to ensure that we comply fully with that. The consultation paper at the moment, I understand, includes for not just renewable energy and the fact that gas boilers will be outlawed in Scotland from 2024, but also the inclusion of EV charging points for each of the homes. So we fully expect that this will be part of the regulation requirement as soon as these new regulations come into force next May. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Just to return briefly to the subject of the play equipment, who will be responsible for the maintenance of the play equipment?
So the play equipment will be maintained by the Estates Management Company. We go to a fair bit of trouble to ensure that we select the correct Estates Management Company for any given development. But ultimately the responsibility for funding the maintenance of those play areas falls, in terms of cost, falls to the residents. But like I said, the equipment, when it's installed by an accredited installer and it has a long lifespan, like we know that the play equipment does have, then we expect that in terms of maintenance costs for play areas should not be significant. We should not be looking at replacing play areas within 5 years or even 10 years for that matter, because as long as they are maintained in a continual fashion and looked after by the residents and by the local community, then there should be no onerous bills for residents in respect of play areas. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Graham. Andy, I might bring you in at this point. We've just had a query about our approach to the consultation and who we've consulted with and how we've taken their views on board. So I don't know if you want to come in at this point just to talk about our wider consultation exercise, which includes this event.
Yes, thank you, Gregor. It's a good point, and the planning application process today requires us to accurately record all pre-application consultation within a pre-application consultation report or PAC report. That actually forms one of the statutory requirements of a major application submission under Scottish Government regulations. This application is a major application because of the unit numbers and the area of the site. So we have sought to include as many of the local community groups, community council being the normal core approach, but local councillors have been involved. Clearly the golf club themselves are a key part of the development, but equally through John and his colleagues, they also represent a key consultee. We've as was mentioned in previous presentations, we have had engagement beyond the local community in terms of the planning authority themselves and within their wider service lines, and indeed that all continues. A key part of the process now going forward is that we begin to wrap up our part of this in terms of comments and feedback from the local community coming back to us, and ultimately we bring that together in our planning application submission. Once the planning application is lodged with the planning authority, it is then subject to a further period of notification, including neighbour notification to direct neighbours who bound the site, and very often the planning authority go above and beyond their requirements in that regard. And that forms the council's own notification. Comments at that stage beyond planning application submission are to the planning authority directly, as opposed to us at the moment. And all of that ultimately is brought together by the planning officer's report, which is a combination of our own pre-application consultation report with the extensive consultation undertaken at this stage, together with the council's own notification, and indeed importantly on this application, because it involves an environmental assessment, there will be a separate advert under the environmental impact assessment regulations, which is an advert that goes out far and wide and could well generate interest from well beyond Helensburgh, indeed well beyond Argyll and Bute. So I think from a very local level through to a council level and beyond, we're happy that we have consulted under the requirements of us, and indeed we've gone beyond that. But coming back to the question, it can be reviewed and commented upon as part of the planning application submission in due course.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks. We've just got time for a couple more. So David and John, I'm going to bring you in on this one if you're still with us. What is the capacity for the golf club car park for the clubhouse, and how has this number been worked out to ensure it's sufficient for the golf club's needs?
Yes, thanks for that.
Thanks, Gregor.
I'll mention the car parking, David. We currently have about 65 car parking spaces at the clubhouse just now, and we're increasing that to somewhere in excess of 80, to probably nearer the 85 mark. So quite a significant increase in the car parking.
Yeah, just to follow on from that, John, yeah, the car parking design is based on numbers between 80 and 90. It's increasing the provision that currently exists at the club, and this is entirely separate from storage of things like maintenance equipment and whatnot that are supporting the golf course maintenance. So this is exclusively for use by members and visitors.
Thanks both. And just related to that, there was another query about access for coaches to the golf facilities. I don't know if you want to speak about if that's been taken into account.
Yeah, so, David's been the architect that has designed it, but yes, we do get the occasional coach party coming to the golf club, and the access and the area around about the clubhouse has been designed to suit that. But David can give the detail of that.
So, Gregor, it might be worth just going back to the site plan for the clubhouse, if possible.
Absolutely.
So as you can see, the clubhouse building is fronted by a large radius turning circle and drop-off bay. That's designed to accommodate, as John says, the occasional coach parties. The road construction is to support that as well, and there is dedicated drop-off there and allowances for keeping coach parties within the realm of the clubhouse and their roads infrastructure.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, I think that covers it off. I'm just conscious of the time. We're approaching the end of the event, so shortly I'll hand back to Andy just to make some concluding remarks. But thank you to everyone who's submitted good questions today. They've been really good, and just to reassure everyone that an updated frequently asked questions will be published on our website early next week. So any questions that we haven't covered off will be included within there. Thanks, Andy. I'll hand over to you to conclude.
Thank you, Gregor. I would just add that, again, the information boards that we have shown as part of this consultation event, and indeed some additional information around about these, are available on both of the websites. Gregor, if you maybe just flick back to the final slide, just so that information is absolutely clear. As indeed I and others have mentioned, the intention is that we now proceed to lodge our application next month, and therefore comments at this stage we have suggested should be with us through the various means noted in the presentation to date by the 6th of August. And that will allow us to compile indeed many of the very good points raised today, and any others that arrive with us by the 6th of August into our final iteration of the application proposals. So it's been a long journey, as Graham mentioned at the outset, but it's been very worthwhile. The consultation has been, I believe, genuine and thorough, and as was mentioned during the main part of the presentation, a great number of changes have been made to the original proposals, both in terms of the residential and in particular in relation to the golf course layout, the new course layout. So from our side, that has been extremely beneficial, and as indeed all of these consultation exercises tend to be. So please do pick up on the information and the additional information available within the websites, the Taylor Wimpey and the Montague Evans websites, as details are shown. And please continue to follow the application. I would imagine an application of this nature will continue to feature locally, and we will work closely with Argyll and Bute Council and any other interested stakeholders to ensure that we ultimately deliver a good result for you. So the time is now approaching 1 o'clock, and I would like to draw this virtual event to a close. So thank you very much once again for joining us today for this second virtual public consultation event for this important development in Helensburgh. It has generated a number of interesting questions. I think we will pick a number of these up again next week when we meet again with Argyll and Bute Council. I hope you have also found it helpful and informative, and we look forward to engaging further with the local community and stakeholders following the submission of our planning application. So thank you very much once again, and bye for now.